What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Real Fans FC, and specifically this week in football. We haven't done this in a couple of weeks because of being out of town and misalignment of schedules, but we're back. We got a couple interesting topics that actually came up. This is going to be the first time we're discussing as the European season started. So there's a lot of fun things to talk about. But Adam, how you feeling? How you doing? And do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I don't mind going first because I think I got a good topic that could go first. But
Okay.
overall, it's been good. Been good. A lot of football going on. Getting into Europe, getting into some of those cup competitions. It's just hitting you in the face everywhere you go. It feels like now every day there's some sort of game tournament going on. But that's good for us. We like that. But speaking of the big news, the big story of the week is the Ballon d'Or. We had the ceremony.
Okay.
Um, we had the announcement. I think, and we'll talk more in detail, but the big headline: Dembele wins the Ballon d'Or. Um, Quite an achievement, especially if you think about where his career was a few years ago. Not exactly hitting the ground sprinting at Barcelona. He certainly was a good player, but having some injury issues, some other team issues, things like that. And I think overall my sentiment is that it's deserved. I was thinking that the rankings after the top five is where you start to get really kind of weird, and it's like, what the hell? Like, what's the logic and thinking behind that? It wasn't really until I dug into like how the voting is and then I realized, okay, I can understand how that breeds just based on how people would vote, how it can cause some of these weird ones after you get past the top five. But again, I don't think anybody should look at the top like 5 through 20 or whatever it is that they release because it's just basically like these are all the players on the short list. I don't think you should actually put those in order because when you look at some of the orders and like, okay, this player is 18, but this player is 12, and it just gets very confusing very quickly. But as long as they get the top award right, I usually don't have too many complaints, and I feel like in this case they did.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the other rankings, but looking at these rankings, I think they're fair considering that most of the players are PSG players because I think so many players on that team had a shout. Now, look, I if you would have told me like 3 years ago that Dembele would win a Ballon d'Or, I would think you were fucking crazy. Like I'm
That's why
somebody who
it's so cool.
I,
It's funny. That's what I meant by saying where his career was, because it's like you tell somebody 4, 5 years ago, by the way, Dembele is going to win a Ballon d'Or, and nothing else. You don't say anything else about it. You don't say what team he's on. You just say
I
he's going to win a Ballon d'Or in 2025. You'd laugh and you'd be like, that's actually a good one.
And the thing too, it's like, look, Dembele is a world class player, but like, I would never think that he, even currently, if he's even a top 10 player, but considering the season that he obviously like, he's always had a ton of talent. It's just been a matter of consistency. And I know I see a lot of Barca or people making fun of Barca and all this other stuff, or even Barca fans saying like, "Why do we get rid of him?" Let's not forget, man. Like there was a justified reason to get rid of him. Like I watched a lot of, like he didn't fit the system that Xavi had at the time. He was a guy that would go to the right wing, cross it in religiously, and that was all he ever did. He never cut it. When he went to PSG, he came a different player, and maybe that was under the Luis Enrique system that he's deciding going more. But he was also plagued with injuries constantly at Barcelona. He rarely
That's
ever
his
saw
number
the
one
field.
problem, I
Then
think.
and then when he saw the field, he was rusty. It was trying to get him back into rhythm, and then he would have like a good game here or there. It was completely justified at the time to sell him over to PSG. Sometimes players just play well in different systems, and that's across all sports. We see it all the time across a variety of different things. And this worked out for him. But yeah, it's funny because even so, like I'm not even entirely sure. I mean, I think with this, he has to be a top 10 player, but like prior to last year, I wouldn't have thought he was like a top 10 player. It's got to be one of the biggest surprises. I will say, looking at this list, my heart personally, and I know they would never do it back to back because Pedri won it last year. Not Pedri. Oh my god. Rodri won it last year, but like I think Vitinha should have won that. Like honestly, but it's obviously it's a position based. There's
Yeah.
going to be some kind of bias to that. But if you look at what Vitinha did that season, he was out of his mind. And I think third, if it was anything less than third, I'd be completely disappointed. It makes sense that Lamine Yamal was in second because of what he did this season as well. But to me, it was always kind of clear that Dembele was going to win it. Like 100%. He had the most consistent season. He played out of his mind during Champions League and in the final. But if you look at a guy who did the dirty work and a guy who just like the unsung hero of that team, it was Vitinha. Like that guy was just everywhere. He played out of his mind. And I'm glad that somebody who got a little bit of justice in this list was where did they put him? Nuno Mendes. Mendes. Nuno Mendes is probably the best left back in the league in the world. Like the dude, another unsung hero, no one talks about. That guy is unreal. Um, it's hard to place which one did better, him or Hakimi, but obviously Hakimi is going to be a little bit more of an attacking threat. He got more goals and stuff, but the amount of dirty work that some of these players do is just unreal. And I'm glad that they got the recognition that they did. Um, I get Cole Palmer had a great season, but man, that's just kind of weird to see him at 8. Like I will say,
Yeah,
it's
that
just
was a weird.
it's,
That
it,
was a weird one. The jokes were like a lot of people were just after he was, when players would getting announced on Twitter, of eight, higher numbers.
Mhm.
Everybody knew that Cole Palmer was still yet to, he's on the short list and he's yet to be announced. So it was just funny seeing all the replies to every single player, basically like, "Oh, I can't believe Cole Palmer is rated higher than X player,"
Yeah.
and that's
And
funny
I
to
will
see.
say too, and I think this is a lot of it's just because of the clout and the name. Was not 7 this year. He was not 7 this year. Like no, not even a chance to me. And this is coming from somebody who I still think Mbappe is probably the most talented player in the world. Like when he's playing well, cause I've seen, dude, we've all seen Mbappe. But there's moments you're like, dude, Mbappe is the next one, and he just hasn't lived up to it yet. And I think he's riding on a lot of that. And as somebody who thinks that highly of him and myself, like, come on, 7 is just like, that's a topic for another discussion. But I don't know if Real Madrid is the best place for him to get the most bang for his buck.
Yeah,
Now, somebody who really like fell and I think would have been a lock if they didn't just get absolutely torched by PSG and fell apart since then was Mohamed Salah. Salah was on track to basically win it all. Like he was a lock. If you said in January he was going to win it, it was like a lock. Boom, get knocked out in Champions League by PSG, and just from there the dominant run continued. And it was
amazing how much weight is being put on actual club performance now, which I think is fair when you have so many players that are so close. There's really not much separating them. Um, I think that's a good differentiator. Like I'm seeing a lot, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. Like the biggest it's not even that large of a group, but if I'm seeing any criticism at all, it's people saying, "Oh, I think maybe Yamal should have won it." I think they need to relax. I think he's going to get a million of them, but like PSG, and you look at the success they had, and it's bumping up everybody else. Like you said, Nuno Mendes getting respect, Vitinha getting respect. These are all players that contributed to they were the reason PSG was so dominant last season. So I don't know how you can look at that and be like, yeah, I would still vote Lamine Yamal above when he's going to have plenty of Ballon d'Or victories in his young career. He is going to.
yeah, I would be shocked if Dembele wins another one. Um,
And I agree with
but it's
that, but
possible. Maybe
that's
he
just
gets
how it
better.
is.
Maybe this is the norm now for his career. Maybe he needed that the change with Mbappe gone and everything. Like maybe for here on out, like he just continues to play like this, and he's the guy that no one saw coming. But yeah, I think this season because there was no like major international tournaments. Sadly, it is what it is. Like unless it's a World Cup or the Euros, for example, international tournaments just aren't going to get the clout that they are. Now, I do think they play a part for South Americans in a sense where if you have a like look at Vinicius Jr. was a great example last year with Rodri. It's like you compare like he played awful for Brazil. He played bad. To me, that's enough to like to me I think if there's an international tournament going on, a major one, whether it's like a Copa America or a Euro or a World Cup, I think you have to take 25% of that of like whatever your ratings are has to go towards international play, at least 25% in a big international tournament year. And to me, that was the big difference last year with Rodri was the player of the tournament. He won MVP of the tournament for Spain, who won the whole thing. And he also played well for league versus Vinny. Yes, he played well for Real Madrid. They won the title, but they he was horrible for Brazil. And I think that plays a factor. And it's
Yeah, and he
obviously
should.
like Salah's not going to have that benefit because he plays in Africa. And that's just kind of how it is. It seems like the only ones that really get that extra push is if you're European or playing the Euros or you did something in the World Cup. But outside of that, maybe a Copa America, like the big one like we had where combined North and South, then like yeah, you get a little bit of push there, but it is what it is. But we can move on to the next one. I guess I'll go next. And speaking of international tournaments, so recently reported by the New York Times / Athletic now, which I just found out from Adam, is that CONMEBOL had a meeting with all the other. I guess FIFA just had an overall like meeting in one of the Trump Towers in New York City, where they all
Why the
discussed
fuck
about
not?
plans, about all the plans for the 2030 World Cup and what they want to do for the 100th year anniversary. And it was brought up by, let me double check here, executives from Paraguay and Uruguay, as well as senior football executives from South American Federation, CONMEBOL, and the head of the Argentine Football Association, the AFA, that they would like to perform a pitch to make the 2030 World Cup a 64 team tournament. So before I go forward, Adam, I just want to give first reaction when you heard that. Like, what's going through your brain?
So I guess in one word, no. Just no. But I think that we've reached a point now with the World Cup. You know, we've seen expansions on these international tournaments. I feel like where the global game is now, I think it's at a good spot. I think that there's a good amount of teams now in the World Cup, a good mix of all
So
confederations.
sorry to cut you off, but real quick. So you like 48? You like the move from 48 that we're gonna do next year?
I think I can live with that based on the teams I mean like let's look at this. You know, we spoke about this um on previous episodes where you have a team like Uzbekistan going to be in the World Cup. And if you're putting a 64 team World Cup out, now you're really going to have a lot of those teams. It's not going to be crazy when an Uzbekistan makes it to the World Cup. You're going to have 3 to 4 Uzbekistan type teams every World Cup. And to me, that
Guaranteed.
dilutes it. That I think that dilutes it. It's going to make qualifying less important. Qualifying is very important. It's 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 just it's really 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 critical. And I just think that one, you have already a long tournament. I think the World Cup, even before 48 teams, I think the amount of football played from a fan's perspective was good. There's already a lot going on now from a perspective of players of like we're playing too much. Now you're gonna like how are you gonna do it? It's one thing to throw 64 teams in there. Are you just gonna have more groups? Does that mean there's gonna be an extra round of knockout? There's a lot that needs to be considered here. You can't just say let's throw 64 teams in there. I understand that some confederations get more than others and some confederations have it easier than others, but you have to set a cap somewhere because at what point is qualifying the World Cup too. You know, if you're just gonna keep adding teams to the World Cup, I know that's an extreme example, but like, what's stopping you from just saying, screw it? The World Cup
No
starts,
qualifying.
no
No,
qualifying.
this
Everybody's in the World Cup. Congratulations. And it's a big ass tournament, and everybody in the world gets whittled down until there's one team left. Like, there, you gotta draw the line somewhere. And I feel like now it's just for fun. Like they're just screw it. We're doing well. We have fans all over the world. We got all these teams and all these players from all these different countries. Let's do it because why not? Let's have some fun. And I just feel like you need to have purpose behind these decisions. I don't think you should be doing it just for the fun of it or just because it'd be cool or you'd want to or think, oh, the move up to 48 was good. Let's keep going. Like you can't just be making those decisions. You gotta have a plan.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of elements to this. Like we can talk about the footballing aspect of it too, and I will get there in a second. But you also got to think about the strain on the country that's hosting it. Like that's a lot of games. That's a lot of infrastructure that has to be built. I mean, we already know like when a country takes on a World Cup, it is a massive. There's a reason why there's like an 8 year lead up time because there's a massive infrastructure that has to be updated and be able to handle this amount of. I mean, you're talking about the biggest tournament in the
Yeah,
world
not
across
everybody's the USA who could just basically host it tomorrow if they wanted to.
and
Not
even
everybody's like
then,
that.
I think we're going to struggle. And yeah, and like you said, no, I don't even, there's not another country that has as many stadiums of the sheer size that we do, just due to because we have the NFL and stuff, and also the
And
size of
college
our
football.
country. Yeah, and college football, and just yeah, due to the
They
size of
could
the
put
country,
a
amount of
World
people that
Cup
live here,
game at the University of Alabama if they wanted to, and they
and
and it looked fine.
yeah, and even then, we are going to have problems with infrastructure in terms of traffic, not really having a robust public transit system, hotels in certain cities. Like we're going to have problems there.
And you're going
So
to hear different stories based on the city by city. Some cities are going to be very good. There's going to be no problem. Some cities are probably going to be a nightmare for
yeah,
these teams.
yeah, and I mean like and this is the United States. Too. I mean, we're not even talking about how it looks like going forward from here on out. There's no more going to be just single host countries. It looks like, especially as they add teams, for these smaller countries, they're going to have to. Hypothetically, yes, the U.S. could have posted everything, but I don't know if there's another country that could. Maybe Brazil, China, maybe. Like those are the I not for me. I don't not in Europe. I don't think there's not enough stadiums to do that in England or Spain or Germany or wherever. I mean, there's a obviously they can for like a smaller tournament, but like you said too, I don't. From the footballing point of it, you're making qualifying mean nothing. You're making these confederation rivalries and these confederation tournaments mean less and less because like what do we do, like especially CONMEBOL, out of all confederations, the smallest one in the entire world, they have 10 teams. We're talking about now the basically the entirety of South America is going to get qualified. No point of World Cup qualifying. And everybody knows South America World Cup qualifying is like a massive tradition. I personally think it's too long. I think it's really weird that like right after the World Cup's over, they go straight into qualifying and they play like, I don't know, 17 games against each other.
Yeah,
I
it's a
think
lot.
that's excessive. I
A
mean, that's
lot.
excessive to me because every window is just World Cup qualifying. They don't have a chance for friendlies and stuff. But
Yes.
now you're going the complete opposite direction where it's like, is there even a point? Because World Cup qualifying it's extremely important to get ready. As somebody who has me and you both have teams that are going through qualifying right now. It teaches, not teaches, but it prepares players for the pressures of must win games. Like we've seen at times where like
Yeah.
teams go on a hot streak in qualifying, they can then take that momentum into the World Cup. Like I think that's really big. And then, like you said, like with more games comes more risk. Like, which is also crazy from an Argentina perspective, a team that never struggles to qualify. They qualify every year. You really want to play one more game, potentially two more games now if you compare 32 to 64 of potential injuries, potential issues. I mean, as you add games, the more risk of injury that we're getting here, the travel, fatigue, whatever it might be. It just seems like what point is it too much? Because the World Cup should be the pinnacle. It should be a big deal to make it. There's countries that have never made it, and there's countries that have made it like once or twice. I mean, we can see it here in our own confederation with the expanded formats. There's teams vying to make it for the first time. The only country, or the only two countries in CONCACAF that have made it that are in qualifying now is obviously Costa Rica, where we make it consistently, and Panama's only made it one time in their entire history. Everybody else, I think Haiti made it once or twice, like a long time ago, back in the 70s and 80s, and maybe El Salvador. I'm not sure, but realistically, the only one that's consistently there is Costa Rica. So
Yeah.
we're talking
I
about
think that's the most important
we're
part.
adding two more teams who aren't there regularly, and do they deserve to be there? Like, they're not at that level. And I mean, and you can even make an argument that currently in the 32 team format, how many teams deserve to be there, and they're just there because of the confederation they play in. But
Think about it from a fan
now
perspective too. Like
you're
some of
spreading
these
it.
countries, like let's just say like let's take Uzbekistan for an example. If you're a diehard fan of soccer in Uzbekistan and you're watching and they qualify for the World Cup, you feel as a fan like they won the championship. It is probably one of the greatest moments in your entire life as a sports fan. Now you're taking that away. Some of the greatest wins I've ever celebrated as a Poland fan have been in qualifying games. It's like it's crazy to think about. Like one of the first time Poland ever beat Germany in a professional match that wasn't a friendly, was in a qualifier, and I felt like we won the World Cup. Like it was like, holy shit, we beat Germany for the first time ever. They used to take all of our players like Klose and Podolski, and now we're beating them with our new guy Lewandowski when he was young. And it's just like, you lose all those moments because it becomes, if you're a team like an Argentina, a
It's
Spain,
whatever.
you're pretty much guaranteed to make it. If you don't,
Unless you're
it's going to be
Italy.
even worse. It's going to be even worse. It's more of a disaster, like in Italy. And yeah, and like you said, there's more games, so you got to deal with it. And then the teams that aren't as good and who never make it are going to start, the third or fourth best team in the Confederation that in previous editions wouldn't make it is now going to be a regular staple in a World Cup when they, in
Yeah,
reality, wouldn't qualify in the older formats. And I think that's
and I think
critical.
you strive to be better. I think it means something, even though I don't follow Africa. If I see like a country like Gabon make the World Cup, I'm like, wow, okay, they went through the hard effort of whatever process that they've included, whether it be better scouting, recruitment, whatever it might be, to bring themselves to this point. They didn't get here by mistake. No one gets to World Cups by mistake, or just for like, they're just kind of here. Like, it takes a process, it takes rebuilding, and honestly, you need to not make the World Cup sometimes. Sometimes countries need that wake up call. These federations need these wake up calls, like Italy, for example, that didn't make it. Like the USA, right here in our backyard, 2018 was a disaster. It restructured the way that we view football in this country now going forward because we made that mistake. You need to fail to move forward. And when you lose that ability to fail and everybody just makes it, and then your first game's against Argentina, well, it's like, well, whatever. Like you're not actually striving to be better. And the last point too that I was thinking about as you were talking is there might be more global eyes on the game, and but I think the problem that you're going to lose a lot of the time is how many players in these smaller nations, and this is somebody coming from me who roots for a smaller nation, had made a name for themselves in these tournament, in the World Cup, because of what they were able to do, because they were competing with the best of the best. Now that view of like this player who plays out of his mind, let's use Costa Rica for example. 2014, we went to the quarterfinals. That was a massive deal. The country was on fire. Everybody was like shocked. It was amazing. That being able to do what we did, we won the group of death with England, Italy, and Uruguay. Won it. That forever shaped the way that our country is viewed, and now the way our players are now scouted going forward, because those players who played for that team They went to Europe. They played in La Liga. We had players in Germany. We had players in England. That moment was huge. And I think if you then expand it, now we're talking about, all right, we might have a group with like Zambia, Paraguay, and Thailand. You know what I mean? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. You want a group, but it doesn't really mean anything. Like it's like you lose the scouting eyeballs. And I think that's the problem, especially for these countries who bust their ass to get into the dance and then they can make a splash. Now all of a sudden, like it's harder to make a showcase for yourself, whether it be for your players or for your country. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I think we beat that one to death. But we'll do one more topic. What you got for us, Adam?
Well, so I thought this was an interesting one, not going to be nearly as juicy as the other ones that we talked about. There's probably going to be a few thoughts one way or the other.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm just curious your thoughts after, we were mentioning at the top of the show, a lot of football going on, including Champions League, Europe is going on full force. We had some good games to start. Um, and one of the big early matchups was, and it ended up being quite the game, was Atletico Madrid and Liverpool. So a lot of talk has been going on about what happened afterwards. Are you familiar with a bit of the aftermath? And Simeone's kind of gotten in trouble again in his career.
So I know the whole point of this show is that we have ball knowledge. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not going to talk out of my ass. I'm going to be true. I did not see it. I was out of the country, out of the state, out of town. I was in California. So
Oh, this is gonna be
I
fun.
wasn't able to really follow stuff. So I'm going to lean on you, Adam, to break down everything for me, and I'll give you your thoughts. I'll give you my thoughts after you break it down for me.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, tense match, very closely fought. Liverpool
Okay.
versus Atletico Madrid. Obviously, Liverpool got a goal at the very dying moments of the game to win and beat Atletico Madrid. Game was in Liverpool. So allegedly, the Liverpool fans behind the Atletico Madrid bench were berating Atletico players and coaching staff for the entire game. After the 90th minute, like plus goal without one Liverpool game, Simeone obviously was not happy, turned around to, walk back towards his bench. And of course, the Liverpool fans were still giving him shit, and he had enough, and he confronted them. And then some of the other Atletico staff
That's such a
kind of came over,
Simeone thing.
and there's like a video of some of his coaching staff like spitting at the Liverpool fans. So he got in trouble, and there's some inquest going on. But there's also some inquest and investigations going on into the Liverpool fans because it was uh, apparently it was uh, credible allegations that they were abusing them for the entire game. Simeone did come out and say that even though he's getting berated for 90 minutes and he doesn't think it was acceptable, that his reaction is unacceptable, not correct, and he said that as a coach, you have to take it. Now that's kind of your job is to sit there and kind of take some of that shit. So he did accept responsibility, but I feel like he's always getting into these rows, and I think out of all the play, if you were to tell me what is the city that has the best chance of getting under Simeone's skin, I would say Liverpool. I don't know, something about it. I feel like Simeone wouldn't get along with those people, and I guess I was right. Um, so he's taking responsibility. There's investigations going on to the fans. I don't think what the fans did is good. I mean, yes, of course, there's going to be banter and there's going to be insults hurled around. Sounds like from what is coming out with them investigating the fans and Simeone making those comments, it sounds like it was more than just simple berating for 90 minutes. Um, hard to tell, but curious based on I know you haven't seen it directly, but just based on my explanation, if you have any initial thoughts to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think two things. Simeone, like at the end of the day, you got to be the bigger man. Like you got to move on. I mean, he's Argentine. Like You're telling me like there's worse shit that happens in Argentina than what happens in Liverpool. Sorry, Liverpool fans, but have you been to the Bombonera? Have you been to the River Plate Stadium? Like, it's way worse. Like,
I want to know how nice
eh,
the Real Madrid fans are to him when there's like a Madrid derby going
I think
on.
there's
Like,
a
what the
lot of
hell?
I think there's a lot of buffer in those stadiums. And one thing with the Prem stadiums, I've never been to one. I know you have, but from what I've heard, people told me the stadium kind of feels on top of you, which I like personally. Like I like kind of
The
feeling
older
like
ones,
you're in the
yes, for
game.
sure. If the
I
older
don't
they
know
are, the more
about
on
the
top you
Trafford,
are
not
on top
Trafford,
of like Anfield
Anfield.
and Old Trafford are both the older style, so you would be on kind of on top of the bench in that scenario. The newer
Yeah, and I
stadiums
will.
is where like a unique one that I don't think counts is like West Ham in the London Stadium. That's completely like you're
Yeah,
far
it's
away.
the
Yeah,
yeah
so that's
the
completely different. But I'd say in general, that's true. If you have an older stadium like the Emirates, it's kind of like that. So I'd say, yeah, you'd still see them with some of the newer stadiums, but for the most part, if it's an older stadium, it's going to be designed kind of like that.
yeah, and I think you have to be the bigger man. But then I also think too, and this is where I guess the investigation has to come in place. Like, what exactly was going on? Like, if it's just banter and they're just talking shit, and even if it's personal, I feel like, look, man, you got to eat it. Like, I know it's
I agree.
terrible.
Yeah, if
It's
something was
terrible.
thrown or if there was
But
any
if they
spitting
threw
going
some
on, yeah,
shit,
that's
or
completely
yeah,
different. I
like
don't know. I
if
really don't know.
if they
I
violate, I'll say this: if they violated his space, his personal space, then that's a problem. Then you're talking about like aggravated assault potentially. I think even if you throw something at somebody, that's technically assault.
Yeah,
Like
and I
I
still
mean,
think you're gonna see even whether or not like so let's just say argument's sake that does happen. You know, somebody threw something or spit or whatever.
you just got
Invaded,
to
like you
run.
said, invaded Simeone's personal space. Then I can like live with his reaction and the coach's reactions. I still think that just for
You got to run
visibility
for
of
his
how
own
it looks,
safety.
but it also I do think UEFA, like in that scenario, if he was actually getting abused to the point where it would kind of, I don't think anything warrants that reaction, but let's just say warrants that reaction, he's still going to get punished, but you might look at it like, all right, yeah, he'll eat that touchline ban and the fine, but I probably would have done the same thing in the situation. It's hard to know until all the details come out, so that's why you can only go based on what was said, and that's why I wanted to make it clear that Simeone did take responsibility and did say, yes, I needed to be the bigger man and I needed to basically take it. So it's hard to say. I think he would have said the same thing anyway, even if they did throw something at him. He'd still say, yeah, you need to take it. You need to let security deal with that stuff and just point it out. Until all
Yeah,
the details come out, it's I'm not going to give too many opinions on it other than fans should
well,
have a line that they don't cross, and then
I
same
think
thing with the
too.
coaches.
I think too. You have to put in consideration, especially if you're Simeone, not just you're in enemy territory because you're the opponent. You're in enemy territory because you're Simeone. You're a historic Argentina player who, let's not all forget, was just reminded in the Beckham documentary what he did to England and Beckham. And so there's a lot of history in the rivalry between Argentina and England. And this is a guy who played a pivotal part in one of those chapters of that rivalry. So you have to remember, like, if you're Simeone going to England after everybody was just reminded of what happened in this very popular documentary and Netflix, you have to kind of expect the worst and prepare to get in and out. Like if you're Simeone specifically, like because I don't know if you remember, because did you watch the doc?
A little bit. I didn't watch
So
it start to
basically,
finish.
what happened was in the World Cup, uh, Simeone instigated Beckham like the entire game, like instigated him constantly to the point where I thought was an egregious red card on Beckham, but it makes sense. I understand the technicalities of it. Caused a red card on Beckham. Beckham got absolutely torched and blamed for him all over the medium. It led to England losing to Argentina in that World Cup because they were down a man from that red card. And it was Simeone that drew the red card or was frustrating Beckham so much that it caused Beckham to get the red card against Simeone. And in the documentary, Simeone talks about how he wanted to get under Beckham's skin, how he knew it was the way forward to essentially beat England. So if you add in that history to it, and the fact that people were just reminded about it in this doc like last year, like you kind of see why a lot of people talk shit. Obviously, people in England don't forget that shit. Like they don't. And I'm
They
sure a lot
don't.
of them
Yeah.
feel bad now. And I think a lot of them feel bad for crucifying Beckham 30 years ago about what happened, and then seeing it in retrospective, like Simeone was a fucking asshole.
Mhm.
So I think that plays a part. I don't know how much of it plays a part, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were some old heads in that Anfield Stadium sitting behind him thinking like, this guy costed us the World Cup that
Well,
year
there's
or
definitely,
whatever. Like
yeah, there's
that, I'm,
plenty of
I'm
them.
sure there's like, you don't forget. And considering like who he is, like, I think if you're Simeone, you have to, you got to go, dude. Like you got to move. You got to move on. So yeah, I don't know if you remember that or if you, because I wasn't sure if you saw it, but I thought that was interesting because when you brought up this saga, it kind of like sparked the thing in my mind about that situation that
Oh yeah,
happened in the
that's
World
a
Cup
good comparison there, and that probably does play some part. And I'm sure there's people in that
and the
stadium who
berating.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this was a great episode. This was awesome. I think we're ended off there and this week in football. I appreciate we had some really like dope topics. I loved it. If you're listening on audio platforms, please be sure to leave a rating. And if you're on audio, if you're on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe to see more content just like this week in football. We got some stuff heating up. Obviously, we've got a lot of topic ideas to get ready for this World Cup. I think a lot of international stuff, and then obviously Champions League and this week in football and stuff like that. So if you want to see more content around that, please be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.